I just saw Joker, and I think it is entirely possible for a film to be a masterpiece and incredibly disturbing, because that is what I just witnessed. I think it goes without saying that Heath Ledger is the gold standard of Jokers, not just because he got the gold trophy of the Oscar, but because there was something menacing and intelligent and completely mad but controlled about his Joker. And as is typical with Joker stories, we didn't get really an origin story. He also had a fantastic laugh, which for me was one of the big problems with Jared Leto's Joker. That and inadequate screen time to really decide whether he could be any good in that role, but the laugh was no good. And so there was a lot of hype around this movie before it came out. For me, Joaquin Phoenix is one of those actors that is definitely left of center, and often when he plays more left of center characters, he produces incredible work. And I feel like regularly he doesn't get the accolades or the support that he deserves for his work. He's one of those actors as well where every time he releases a movie, there's some sort of controversy or something surrounding the release that happens that I kind of think is in a way unfair, because it seems to only happen to specific people. So for example, before Joker came out, there was a lot of talk about whether this movie was kind of unhelpful in the gun violence conversation. And yet that doesn't happen when John Wick comes out. It doesn't happen with Deadpool. And I liked both of those movies. I liked Deadpool, I liked John Wick. And yet people weren't really sort of commenting on the gun violence aspect in the same way that they are with Joker. And I think that's because this movie is so well done that it's conceivably real and it touches a nerve. There's a line in the movie where Arthur says, "All I have are negative thoughts." And I kind of feel like that's what we get when we turn on the news. All we get is negative stuff. And I feel like in this current political climate in the entire world, there is really so much anger and racism and just horrendous stuff going on all the time that basically there's gasoline everywhere all the time. And for me, the accessibility of guns, particularly in America, is basically like giving someone a match and waiting to see if they'll light it. And I think for me, that's why this movie touched a nerve so much. And I actually was quite disturbed by this movie, because I think it really highlights the fact that we as a community don't support people with mental illness enough. We don't have empathy for each other enough. We don't put ourselves in somebody else's shoes enough. And there's a lot of anger, and I just think that we could all really be doing better. And like, you watch this movie and Arthur starts out as someone who obviously has mental health issues and a difficult life, and he's trying to make his way in the world, and he wants to be a comedian, but realistically he's not funny. And there's an incident early in the movie, and that's just kind of the match being lit, and he just descends into madness, really. He just sort of slowly slips further and further down and becomes progressively more violent. And it's just a very disturbing look into somebody who is as unwell as Arthur is. And it's so disturbing because Joaquin Phoenix does it so well. I mean, I often watch movies and I still think you can divide the actor and the role that they're playing. But for me, I couldn't do that in this movie. Like, I fully believe that Joaquin Phoenix has known nothing but misery all his life, that he has never been happy, that he has known nothing but pain. I fully believe that he is mentally unstable. And yeah, it was very disturbing and incredibly well acted. And I really can't see how there could be another role more deserving of lead actor Oscar than what he has done in this movie. But I don't think that he's going to get it, because I think that there's just something sometimes about roles that are very real and raw and when they provoke this kind of question about gun violence and things like that, that sometimes they get overlooked because the powers that be potentially maybe don't want to reward those questions. And I don't know, but I get this funny feeling he's not going to get the Oscar, even though, just holy shit, what a performance. Like, what a performance. I think there were a lot of us who were a little bit curious how this movie was going to go. For many reasons, partially because Jared Leto's Joker didn't go so well, depending on what side of that argument you sit in, and also because the Suicide Squad was a shit show. And I did like his Joker, just for the record. I just hated the laugh and I hated the Suicide Squad. But I just think that Heath Ledger is so beloved in the role of the Joker that it's really hard for someone else to come in and take it without like nailing it. And Joaquin nailed this, but it's a very different Joker. For me, one is really very real, and you could kind of see how that could happen, and you could see how someone could have such a deeply disturbed and unwell mind and just be pushed too far and kind of snap, and someone gives them a gun and things just go badly. And because of the climate that we're in, it wouldn't take much for someone to become the face of a movement, kind of the way that happens in this movie. Whereas you look at Heath Ledger's Joker and he's more controlled. He's definitely insane, but he's controlled in his madness. He's deliberately executing a plan. It's kind of a little bit more in the fantasy world, and so you can kind of separate the two, and even though they're playing the same character, they're both incredibly brilliant and for very different reasons, and disturbing for very different reasons. And they both had awesome laughs. Joaquin's laugh, amazing and creepy and incredible and just so well done. There was actually this moment at the end of the movie where Arthur, who is the Joker, is in the back of a police car and he's looking out the window, and I don't know if it was a deliberate move of the cinematographer, but I totally had Heath flashbacks to when he was hanging his head out the I think it was out of the police car actually as well, in The Dark Knight. And it was, if that was the intention, it was really beautifully well, just so beautifully done. And the cinematography generally was incredible. The way they captured Gotham, and the way they used images to portray the real challenges of Arthur's life without having to use dialogue to do that was really just brilliant. And also the way they filmed Joaquin, it's impossible not to see the crazy in his eyes. It was impossible not to see the pain. It was just so well done on all aspects. But in the same breath, I was disturbed by this movie. Like, I will be checking my door multiple times when I lock it tonight. It was just like the whole drive home, like uncomfortable and just processing this incredible movie. And there's no other word for it than it disturbed me. I do think that they can't really laugh off the question of gun violence in this movie. I think this movie really shows that there need to be tighter restrictions on who can get access to a gun, because it is too easy in some areas of the world for people to get guns, and there is absolutely no need for assault rifles, because clearly, as you can see in this movie, you can do enough damage with one little gun. In terms of just the origin story itself, I think it's genius the way they take Arthur from being a man who has his issues, who has physical issues as well, and who's been beat down by life and ignored by people, and who feels deeply unseen and unhappy, and how they take his character arc all the way through and take him to the Joker. And then at the end, you kind of see that moment that we all know with Batman, where kind of Bruce Wayne is created. I don't want to say too much. I really don't want to spoil this movie for anyone. I just think it's really incredible, and the way they link the story of Arthur and Bruce Wayne is genius and so well done, and so much of that comes down to Joaquin's acting, which is just so good. There are going to be a lot of people who don't like this movie, and I think that's just the way it goes when you're playing a character that has been around for so many years and there's been so many incarnations of, and people have their version that they love. And the thing is, I don't know that I can say that I loved or even liked this movie. I don't think I would ever watch it again. But that's not because it's a crap movie. It is an incredible movie. It is so well done. Cinematography, storyline, acting, everything. The soundtrack, everything is incredible about this movie. But like I said before, the word for me when I came away from this movie was disturbed. I was disturbed by this movie, and I don't think that I would watch it again. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good movie. It is an incredible film, and I think if you are someone who loves the DC world, if you are someone who loves the Joker character, I think you have to see this movie. You really have to. If you're a fan of Joaquin Phoenix, if you're a fan of movies that are a character study, if you love movies where it's all about the character arc and an incredibly well done character arc, which is very, very rare. If you want to see a movie in which an actor portrays mental illness and severe mental illness, and does it just unbelievably well, then I think you should see this movie, because it is so well done that it felt a little bit too real. I hope you've enjoyed this spoiler-free review of Joker, and if you have seen it, let me know in the comments below what you thought, and if you haven't seen it, let me know what it is about this movie that you most want to see. Are you more in it for the character arc? Are you just on the Joker ride and you want to see how the latest version of the Joker is going to play out? Let me know below in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel.